Soldano Astro 20. Let's do this. What's up guys, Frank here from the Gear Couch, and today I have the great pleasure and honor to talk to you about an amp that was just released today, but that I have had a chance to spend a few days with and really get to know it and test it thoroughly. So let's dive right into it. Just a small side topic for all of you who are familiar with Soldano's history and some of the amp models that they've released over the years and are now thinking, Astro, wasn't there something? Doesn't it ring a bell? In fact, it does. There was another amp called the Astro in the past, which was released in the early 2000s, I believe. That one was more addressed to players who wanted the classic Soldano sound, but in kind of a smaller, low wattage form factor. But believe me when I tell you, the new Astro 20 has nothing to do with the Astro apart from maybe its form factor. The new Astro 20 is packed with features that really resonate with me a lot as a player who loves classic tones, but also has like a thing for the contemporary sounds and features. So let's dive into some of the specs of the Astro 20. The new Astro 20 has, as the name implies, 20 watts of output power, featuring two 6v6 tubes in the power amp and four 12AX7s in the preamp. The preamp is very versatile as it features 3 channels in total. You'll have a clean channel and you'll have 2 overdrive channels, and each of these channels has their own gain mode, also 3 different gain modes, or galaxies as Soldano calls these modes. They are not fully individual though, since the overdrive channels share a 3-band EQ and the clean channel comes with a single tone control. It also features a bright switch for the clean channel, a master volume and presence control for the power amp, as well as a depth switch. The depth switch comes in handy if you want to either add low end, let's say you're playing a single coil guitar and you want to beef things up a little bit, or if you're playing a down-tuned guitar and you use more gain and then you like to cut down a little bit of that low end, that's possible too. Now, one of the really great things of the Astro 20 is that it is IR equipped, which means you can use impulse responses and use the amp straight into a mixing desk or into an audio interface without even a connected speaker cabinet. You can also switch off the impulse responses in case you want to use the IRs of your recording software. One thing that I also like visually is, apart from showing you the status of things, there's on the right hand side you have the Galaxy LED which will ignite when the amp is switched on. It would also show you the different galaxies or channels and which one is active. And it would also show you which of the 6 IR slots or presets is active at the time. And you can call that via the switch below. If we take a look at the back of the amplifier, you'll see that below the power cable jack, you can see that there's a switch to adapt the voltages between 110 and 220 volts, which is great. And I would love more companies to do that these days because, I mean, it's definitely a lot easier, especially for the touring musician. You don't have to worry about where you are. And if they tell you, hey, you're in the US, you have 110 volts, you should just flip a switch and you're good to go. Now, beside that, you'll have the power switch. The Astro 20 actually does not need a standby function. You'll have the footswitch jack, which also takes MIDI and is a 7-pin jack. So that means if you have a MIDI foot controller with a 7-pin output, you will automatically get phantom power through that, and you can spare the extra power supply for the controller. You'll find a USB jack to connect to your computer for the Soldano Editor, which is something we'll get into a little bit later. You'll have an XLR balanced output with ground lift switch. You'll have a headphone jack that also has a separate output or volume control. You'll get a serial effects loop, and you'll have a couple of speaker outputs to either go by 4 ohms, 2 times 8 ohms, 8 ohms, 2 times 16 ohms, or a single 16 ohm output. As far as dimensions and weight, the amp is 49 centimeters wide, 26 centimeters deep, and 24 centimeters high. That roughly translates to 19.3 by 10.2 by 9.4. As far as the weight goes, the amp has 11.4 kilos or roughly 25 pounds. Now, if you're thinking, wait, a small compact amp with these dimensions coming in at 25 pounds? Well, what they did is they installed a very powerful transformer in there to make sure that even with 20 watts of output power, you'll still have enough headroom to play within a band context or use pedals in front of it, while ranging around that really nice sweet spot where the amp responds well and gives you that amazing playing feedback that we all love about tube amps. So, sonically speaking, the Astro 20 has a lot to offer. The clean channel offers you really nice, spanky, clean sounds with a really nice thump that will really sit well within a band context. Here's a small example. Since I was mentioning the term headroom before, and I also wanted to know how and in what way the Astro 20 would break up and when, I cranked the volume of the clean channel pretty much to the max, and to my surprise, it didn't break up at all. It started to like slightly compress, but no proper breakup. That's actually amazing, and if you wanted to use it with a boost and overdrive pedal, you could do that as well. The good thing is, even though you crank it up really well and there's a slight compression, you can really feel that the dynamics stay absolutely intact. Now, let's listen to the overdrive channels and the Blue Galaxy, which is kind of a vintage voice mode that breaks up very nicely the more you start to move the gain control towards the right. The purple Galaxy has more gain reserves, but still comes in with a kind of classic voicing. It also has a little bit of a tighter response in the low end, and it kind of takes over where the blue channel ends. The highest in gain comes with the red Galaxy, and that's where you really enter the ballpark of Soldano's iconic high gain tones. This mode has a lot of possible distortion and is an absolute dream for like fat rhythm or lead tones. Alright, so let's take a look at the Soldano Editor, which is free for you to download and install on either your Mac or PC. Whenever people hear the word editor, they're sometimes like, oh, so now it's going to get more complicated. But this one is actually as straightforward as it gets, to be honest. If you have seen some of the videos around the Friedman IRX, which I also talked about recently, you'll notice that the layout is pretty much equal to this one due to the fact that Synergy was involved in the development of it. So if we take a look at the editor, it's actually very simple. So here in the upper section, you can change between all the different presets. So you don't need to do anything on the head other than maybe changing your controls, but you don't need to change any buttons or switches. So you can go and look for the preset that you'd like. You can change the channel to the channel that you want, so clean channel, one of the overdrive channels, and you can also change the Galaxy or the mode of each of the overdrive channels here. The other thing you can do, you can also put the impulse response into bypass mode. That's for when you don't need it because you want to record a dry signal and then you do the impulse response work later in your digital audio workstation. And then on the left hand side, you actually can choose which impulse responses do you want in the 6 available onboard impulse response slots. So right now I have a couple of them loaded in just just to check them out. But the list of IRs include, let's quickly go through them. So you can see with the plus sign, you can actually open that kind of drop-down menu, and then you can see what kind of impulse responses you have available. The first one we see is the 1x12 red. The 1x12 red is, I believe, taken out of a 1x12 Soldano combo, with a redback speaker, which is really high wattage, so it takes a lot of power, it takes a lot of load, and that one was captured with an SM57. We have the 2x12 with vintage 30s, which is a horizontal 2x12, which was captured with an SM57 and a Roya 121. We have the 4x12 V30, which is also a Soldano 4x12. This one was captured with SM57s and a 1973. Then we have the 4x12 GB, which is the UK 4x12 with vintage 30s. Don't need to explain what it is, pretty obvious. This one was captured with SM57s and Roya R121 as well. Then we have the 4x12 with X1200s. So that's a Soldano cabinet with the legendary X1200 speakers, or X12000 speakers actually there were. And that one was also captured with the 57 and the 121. It will, in comparison, provide kind of a darker, punchier sound, and not so heavy on the higher frequencies. We have the 4x12 Legend Deep, and that's a little bit of a deeper 4x12, also by Soldano. This one, same here. It's kind of a really nice combination actually, the SM57 and the Roya 121, because it gives you like kind of a very full range signal to work with. Then we have the 4x12 Legend Tight, which is the same actually, but has different sort of speakers. And as the name implies, it's a little bit tighter on the bottom end. We have the 2x12 with Electro Voice 12Ls in it. We have the 4x12 Rect, kind of self-explanatory what that is. We have the UK 4x12 V30. Now I'm a bit confused. Okay, so that's the UK one. But this one comes with 2 vintage 30s and 2 greenbacks. So it's a kind of a combination. And then we have a UK 4x12 with JBL 120s. These are all the impulse responses that are included, but the thing is, you can obviously very easily load in your own impulse responses if you want to. So if you have a collection of impulse responses that you want to use with the Astro 20, you can use that editor and just put them in there. The cool thing is, you don't need to load them into the slots directly from the start. You can also go ahead and audition them, and then actually say, okay, select, I want that in one of the 6 IR slots. And then the other thing, what I really like you can do is, and that's obviously just a visual thing, but it's really nice. So here down in the custom shop section, you can actually change the color of your Tolex, which I really like. Looks really nice. The Astro 20 comes with a 4-button foot switch, which is essentially calling the first 4 MIDI presets out of 120 all total presets. So you can program whatever channel, galaxy and impulse response you like, and then call that with one of the 4 buttons. Obviously, with a proper MIDI controller, you can extend that to 128 presets in total, which I mentioned before, which gives you pretty much infinite possibilities as far as tones, different impulse responses. So the combinations are pretty much endless. As I mentioned earlier, you can use the Astro 20 without any speaker cabinet connected and just use the XLR output, the balanced XLR output, and go straight into your mixing desk or audio interface to record or play live or whatever the application is. However, there's one thing that you definitely need to pay attention to. If you want to do that, you need to dial the master volume of the power amp completely to 0 and also disconnect all speaker cables from the back of the amplifier. Otherwise, you might run into a possible damage of the power amp, and we definitely want to avoid that. In fact, all the demo sounds that you've heard were recorded using that method. I just went with an XLR cable straight into my audio interface, adjusted the preamp level, used one of the IRs that I saw fit or heard fit very well to the sound that I was going for. And yeah, very straightforward and very uncomplicated. However, if you've been following this channel for some time and maybe remember some of the older videos that I did, I'm always going to be honest with you when it comes to any sort of product. And although Soldano sent me this amplifier to check it out and to do this video, it is not a paid video or a sponsored video. They send it to me, I make the video, and I'm always going to be honest about it. And to be 100% transparent, I don't find anything negative about it. If anything, I've always wanted to have a Soldano amp, and now I even want a Soldano amp more than before, especially with that feature set. The only little pet peeve that I have is, let's say you want to use the XLR output in a live situation, but you also want a speaker cabinet connected to it because you want your stage sound. There's one complication that I see where if you have all your tones dialed in for the XLR output, which doesn't involve the master volume of the amp, and then you increase the master volume to stage volume, you might be in a situation where you need to adjust some of the levels, either gain or volume, in order to get the sound right for the speaker cabinet. That's the only kind of thing where I see that could be a difficulty. But yeah, I think this is something that's gonna happen or not happen, and people are going to find solutions for it. But yeah, it's the only little pet peeve, and it's really the only one, because jumping to my final verdict or conclusion, I really like the amp. I really like that they kind of found the right balance between a super high headroom, clean sound, but also the really modern, contemporary high gain sounds which this thing is able to produce. And if we look at the pricing, so the head is sitting in stores or at retailers for $2,000 or 2,000 euros, I believe, here in Europe, which is, if you look at the feature set, a 3-channel amp, the possibility to play it without a cabinet, with 6 impulse response slots, and the whole thing is fully MIDI controllable or callable, and you get 128 presets. I think it's a pretty fair deal, to be honest. Right, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed looking at the Astro 20 as much as I did, and I really had a lot of fun testing it over the past couple of days. If you like that sort of content, you want to see more, make sure to hit the subscribe button and also hit the bell icon so that you get a notification whenever I shoot a new video. As I said, I'm going to commit to 1 video a week plus a couple of shorts. And that's pretty much it. You can find all the possible sources to buy this amplifier in the description below. And if you have any sort of questions or comments, just leave them in the comment section below. Until the next time, see ya!